and start into our service. Welcome.
Well, good morning, Bridge, and happy Mother's Day. I invite you to stand and worship with us this morning. It's great to have you here. Sing, 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 and make music with the heavens. We will sing, sing, sing. Grateful that you hear us when we shout your praise. Lift high the name of Jesus. What's not to love about you? Heaven and earth adore you. King and kingdoms bow down. Son of God, you are the one. Are the one. You are the love that brings us. You are the light that leads us. Like a fire burning, Son of God, you are the one. You are the one we're living for. Sing, 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 and make music with the heavens. We will sing, sing, sing. Grateful that you hear us when we shout your praise. Lift high the name of Jesus. What's not to love about you? Heaven and earth adore you. Kings and kingdoms bow down. Son of God, you are the one. You are the one we're living for. Sing, 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 and make music with the heavens. We will sing, sing, sing. Grateful that you hear us when we shout your praise. Lift high the name of Jesus. Ooh, sing, 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 and make music with the heavens. We will sing, sing, sing. Grateful that you hear us when we shout your praise. Lift high the name. Sing, 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 and make music with the heavens. We will sing, sing, sing. Grateful that you hear us when we shout your praise. Lift high the name of Jesus.
Good morning, Bridge. You can sit down. That's fine. Welcome today. We are excited that you are with us this morning on Mother's Day, and we are excited to celebrate that. But I also know that Mother's Day can be a rough time for some. I know that maybe you've lost a child, and so this morning we want to grieve with you this morning. Or maybe you have lost a mom in the past, and we want to just mourn with you this morning. Or maybe you've been through some infertility and struggle, and your dream is to be a mom, and it hasn't happened yet. And so, or maybe some adoption loss. And this morning we pray for you and with you. We want you to know that God is walking alongside you every step of the way. And so we just pray for you this morning. But we are here to celebrate moms that have brought us into this world. And so, but I know, not me being a mom, but as a dad, there are some stresses, but moms, there's sometimes a lot of stress in your lives. And so we have a video that we would like for you to watch. So watch this video.
It's 5 a.m. Do you know where your children are? Mine are in bed. I should be in bed. It's Mother's Day, but I'm not. Want to know why? Because I'm a clean freak. I am talking freaky, deaky Dutch. If you were to lock me away in a white room in a straitjacket, it would actually feel comforting. As long as the walls were spotless and nobody wore shoes. I can actually feel the house getting dirty. Like I have nerve endings in the carpet. And it affects me. Want to know how? First, I feel distracted. Distracted. D-I-S-O. So see, like right now, I'm thinking of the cleaning supplies I left out and how one of the kids is going to get up and drink Clorox, and then I'd end up having to call poison control, and they'd say, "Sorry, Mrs. Field, too many times this month," and take my kids away.
Too many times this month, Miss Field. We're here to take your children away.
I've played it all out.
I'm sure you've played this all out.
Which is kind of morbid. After I feel distracted, I feel stressed. Then I have a moment. I am talking to Daddy. This is me having a moment with my daughter.
Hon, about the stress level.
What?
Well, it's a little high.
Gee,
The kind of psycho thing you just did?
did you just call me psycho?
No.
Did you just call me psycho?
No.
It was a little psycho. This is me having a moment with some helpless newlyweds.
We just wanted to say congratulations and savor this moment in your life.
So when I started to speak, I thought it would help. But then the words just started coming out of me like lava.
Because you're gonna blink, seriously, like blink, and it's all gonna be over and replaced with just volume, like just amazing, amazing, beautiful volume.
Look at that. Look at that look on her face. That's the look of a girl whose fairy tale just ended. I murdered it. I am a fairy tale murderer.
It only takes so much before you crack.
Nope.
I am like the Bruce Banner of stay-at-home moms. He doesn't want to turn into the Hulk. It just happens. Which is exactly how I feel. I love my kids. I love my husband. My minivan is awesome. I have this incredible life. So, why do I feel this way?
Whew. Stressful parents, huh? Yep. Hey, with it being moms, and I have a mom special to me, and today we have a gift for a mom this morning. Nice Vera Bradley bag. I even left it in the plastic for you. How about that? Sometimes I like to put it on my arm and walk around with it. So, anyways, so my mom's birthday. So here's how we're gonna give it away. So my mom's birthday is in August. So if you are a mom and your birthday is in August, I would like for you to stand up right now. Okay, so we have 2 so far, 3, okay, 4. All right. So now you're just popping up. All right. Hey, so my mom's birthday is August 9th. Okay, so August 9th. So who has the closest birthday to August 9th? So, what? The 10th. Anybody beat the 10th? One day away? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, come on up. August 10th. You are the winner. Woo! There you go. Couple announcements as we continue on. The one announcement is if you are graduating high school or college, we want to honor you June 2nd here at the bridge on June 2nd. And so if you on your connection card write, I'm graduating, a name, address, and we can get you the form mailed to you. Just a little questionnaire so that we can honor you on that date. Or you can actually go to the Bridge website and you can fill out the information on there, and because we want to honor you on June 2nd. The other thing that we have coming up is an escape room. This is helping out our mission trip that's going to the DR. And so an escape room is just a great time for a family. You get in this room and you got to do some puzzles and figure out combinations and how to get out of the room. And so it's a pretty cool thing. If you haven't done one before, I would encourage you to do one. And so our team here at the Bridge, Annie, is putting an escape room together. And it's going to be at House 114. And it's going to go from May 18th through the 25th. And there are different times. So in order to sign up for one of these times, you'll need to go to the Bridge website, sign up for a time slot. There is a cost to that, but and all the proceeds will go, like I said earlier, to our mission trip this summer to the DR. And there are actually 2 rooms. One room is more for families with elementary kids, and then there's another room more for middle school on up through adults and families. And so you can sign up for whichever room you would like to do. So you'll have to go to the website to check that out. This morning, we're here to celebrate moms, but we're also here to celebrate what God is doing in our lives and to give him praise and glory. And so this morning, I want to read a couple verses for you guys. But if you will stand up for me as I read these 2 verses out of Psalms 100. And this is what it says. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. And that's what we're going to do this morning. We're going to continue to give him praise and to give him glory and to lift him up with joyful songs. So if you'll turn around, shake somebody's hand, tell them good morning, maybe happy Mother's Day, and so we'll continue worshiping God.
awesome. Praise God. I love what Dave just shared about praising with a joyful, giving him joyful praise. But I also like the part of worship where we can go to him and worship him with confidence and give him back the confidence of knowing that he is who he says he is. That we can praise him by saying, we know you are the ultimate healer, the one who can give us peace, the one who can give us comfort, and our only way to salvation. So as we continue to worship this morning, that's what we want to give him. He doesn't need anything from us. He just desires and longs for us to acknowledge that we know who he is. So as a church, let's just settle on that and worship him with that this morning. In this time of desperation, when all we know is doubt and fear, and there is only one foundation, we believe, we believe. And in this broken generation, when all is dark, you help us see that there is only one foundation. We believe, we believe, we believe in God the Father. We believe in Jesus Christ. We believe in the Holy Spirit, and He's given us new life. We believe in the crucifixion. We believe that He conquered death. We believe in the resurrection, and He's coming back again. We believe.
Let our faith be more
Greater than the songs we sing, in our weakness and temptation, we believe, we believe, we believe in God the Father, we believe in Jesus Christ. We believe in the Holy Spirit, and He's given us new life. We believe in the crucifixion. We believe that He conquered death. We believe in the resurrection, and He's coming back again. The lost be found, and the dead be raised, and the here and now, the blood and faith of the church live out. For God will save. We believe, and the gates of hell will not prevail. For the power of God has torn the veil. No, we know your love will never fail. We believe, we believe, we believe in God the Father. We believe in Jesus Christ. We believe in the Holy Spirit, and He's given us new life. We believe in the crucifixion. We believe that He conquered death. We believe in the resurrection, and He's coming back. He's coming back again. He's coming back again. We believe. of your name, King of majesty. There is no power in hell or any who can stand before the power and the presence of the great I am. Great I am. Great I am. In hallelujah. Holy, holy, God Almighty, the great I am, who is worthy, none beside thee. God Almighty, the great I am. Hallelujah. Holy, holy, God Almighty, the great I am, who is worthy, none beside thee. God Almighty, the great I am, the great I am, the great I am, the great I am. Heavenly Father, you are worthy. You are so worthy. And your greatness surpasses everything that we could imagine. God, you fill every void and every empty space in our life. And no matter what we reach for and go for first, once we turn towards you and recognize that it was you, you take us back like every time. Like you love us enough to watch us stumble through all the things that you already know and have for us, God. And so that's why we worship you today. Because like in our flesh, we just do all those things in our own control before we look up. And there you are waiting. I love that greatness about you, and I love how much you love us. Until we finally realize, like, you're the plan A. And so, God, I pray as we continue in this life until we can be in heaven with you eternally, that we know to just come to you. You're the source of everything we need, and your thoughts are higher than our highest thoughts. And so we rejoice that, and we praise you, Lord, and we say yes to everything you have for us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
We know that love gives. We love because God first loved us and gave his son that we could live. Therefore, as a church, we will lead the way with irrational generosity because we truly believe it's more blessed to give than to receive.
Well, good morning. Awesome. We've been in this series, Jesus and We, and the whole kind of basis of the series is that a life with Jesus, a life following Jesus, is not meant to be just personal, but it's meant to be done in community as well. And so this series walks us through values of how to do life in community with a group of people, with the church in our community. And Mike Webb kicked us off a couple weeks ago. And in that, he gave the Bridges mission statement. And I want to touch back on that because I think it's very important to remember what our mission is as we move forward. And so the Bridges mission is this: to inspire this generation to be totally devoted followers of Jesus Christ. We want to inspire this generation. That means whatever generation we find ourselves in. Right now, it's this generation. 100 years from now, the Bridge is still reaching that generation, and that they're inspiring them to be totally devoted followers of Jesus Christ. Now, a totally devoted follower of Jesus is a disciple of Jesus. And that's the mission that Jesus gave us as he took off to heaven. He said, go and make disciples of all nations. And so as a church, this is our mission, is to continue to make people disciples of Jesus. And I think it's important that we remember that if we want to inspire this generation, the place that we have the most impact is right here where God has called us. God has brought us to this place here in Adams County to reach Adams County. And so as we've talked about how do we inspire this generation and make disciples, we want to reach every person in Adams County with the good news of who Jesus is. And so that is our goal, is to inspire this generation to be totally devoted followers of Jesus and to reach every man, woman, and child in Adams County with the good news of Jesus. And I think it's important to remember where our mission is, to start there, because this series walks through several different values. And I think these values are very important for reaching this mission, for inspiring this generation, for pushing them in a direction towards Jesus. And so Mike kicked us off and he said, we are faith-filled, big thinking, bet the farm risk takers. We will never insult God with small thinking or safe living. He said, we're going to be so faith-filled, we're going to be moving so much with God that if he doesn't show up, we're in trouble. We're going to make decisions. We're going to be thinking big the whole time, believing God is going to do something because it's way more than what we could do. And as we move in that direction, believing that God is going to take care of us because we've seen God do it before. And as we sing, we believe that God is going to do it again. He's going to continue to work in our lives. So we're not going to insult him by safe living or small thinking. We're going to continue to be and think big and have a big faith. Missy moved us along and said, hey, we are not spiritual consumers. We don't just sit here and consume stuff. We don't just show up on Sunday mornings and consume, but we are contributors. So we find ways that we can serve here in this church, out in the community, out in the world, whatever it is. We want to be spiritual consumers. Spiritual contributors. The church does not exist for us. We are the church, and we exist for the world. And so the church isn't this building that's kind of the word that we call it. It's this church building. But actually, we, the people, are the church. And so we were created to go out into the world. We are the church, and we exist for the world. So we're going to find every opportunity we can to serve those around us so that we can inspire this generation to be disciples of Jesus. And this week, continuing with these values that help us reach our goal, is we want to be generous. We want to be known for our generosity. As we think big, we don't want to be just known for our generosity, but for our irrational generosity. Generosity that to the outside world doesn't make sense. And we'll talk more about what irrational might look like in our lives and how it looked like in the lives of people that Paul wrote about. But as we look into generosity, here's where we're basing it off of. It's something that Jesus said, and Paul mentioned this to a group of leaders in Ephesus. He says, it is more blessed to give than to receive. It's more blessed to give than it is to receive. Now, my guess is even if you didn't grow up in the church, you might have heard this. Sometimes we add, it's better to give than to receive. We kind of take out the blessed part of it. And to be honest, I heard this a lot growing up. And as parents, we use this to say, hey, it's better to give than receive when we're taking our kids to another birthday party, right? Because kids are like, what am I giving this toy away from? This is the toy I want. And we say, hey, it's better to give than it is to receive. Well, I had a lot of issues with this verse growing up because, honestly, I was like that kid. I really believed that it was much better to get something than it was to give something. And so as I read this verse, I'm like, man, I feel like a bad person because I think it's better to get. And then I thought, hopefully someone else thinks it's better to give than to receive. And they give to me, and I get blessed, and they get blessed because they gave. And so it made this verse all right. But I think sometimes it's hard to get this through our brains because as humans, we're not always wired that way. There's certain mentalities in our heads and there's certain mindsets that lead us away from being generous and lead us more to being selfish. And I've grown up with a couple of these mindsets, of these mentalities that have kept me from being more generous. And I think as humans, we all have kind of moved in this way. And so to this day, I continue to fight these mentalities because I want to be irrationally generous.
And so a couple of these mentalities, the first one is this, the scarcity mentality. Now, Stephen Covey wrote a book a long time ago, and I read it several years ago, and it's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it's a great book. I know lots of leaders that have gleaned a lot of information from this book, so I highly recommend it. But one of the things he talks about is this. It's the scarcity mentality. And in it, he says, the people with this mindset, so they see life as having only so much, as though there were only one pie out there, and if someone were to get a big piece of the pie, it would mean less for everybody else. So you see the scarcity mindset, the scarcity mentality is that there's just never enough. There's not enough out there. And so it's a zero-sum paradigm of going, okay, this is the whole, and if they get this piece and they get this piece, there's only so much left, so I got to get my piece, and I'm going to hold on to my piece because I got my piece here, and it's safe, and if I give a little bit more of my piece away, then there's not enough up there to get more, and so I got to hold it close. And so with this mentality, one of the things that goes on in our head sometimes is the must be nice attitude, right? When you've got your little piece and you're looking at my piece of the pie and you're looking around and you see, wow, they have a nice big piece of pie over there and they just bought a nice new car. I mean, that must be nice to be them. Or you see that this person over here bought this house and they've renovated and it looks really nice and you're going, must be nice to have that job. I wish I had some more. You're scrolling through Facebook and you see that vacation that someone took. And again, we're not happy for them. It's that, must be nice to be them. Because that's a scarcity mentality. It's a scarcity mindset. We're going, there's only so much here, and so I got to hold on to what I have. He points out the opposite of this is the abundance mindset. And this is the mentality that you say, hey, there's enough out there. I can give because there's more to share. There's always going to be enough to share. And so it allows you to be generous, it allows you to focus on other people, and it allows you to put your faith in God. People with this mindset are going, you know what, here's the pie, this person took a big chunk, and maybe I'll go find another pie somewhere. I'm always looking for pie. That's my goal, is find more pie somewhere. But he says, with this abundance mentality flows out of a deep inner sense of personal worth and security. So he's saying this comes from deep down inside of you. Not just in your head, not just the mentality, but in your heart as well. And so, as we look at these two mindsets, which one do you kind of find yourself leaning towards a little bit? So I still fight against the scarcity mentality. There's another mentality that creeps in, that keeps me from having the abundance mindset, and it's this: I own it, it's mine mentality. Right? I know none of you have heard a kid ever say that, right? But I think that's where I know it's kind of human nature, is because from a little kid, they want what's theirs. And they get their new gifts, and it's mine. And they don't want to share it because what if that person takes it or hurts it? And I think a lot of times I've slipped into this too, going, hey, I've worked for this. I've put in time, and I got the education, and this is kind of mine. And so we start thinking that we own it. And so we get to decide what we do with it. And so we might take a little bit and give it here, or we might, I'm going to give it here, but what will you do for me if I give this here, right? We try a few gimmicks and fundraisers of going, hey, if you give me your money, I'll give you a prayer cloth or a pen or whatever it is. We do fundraisers and stuff so that we can urge people to give a little bit. Because if we think what we have, it's mine. The opposite of this is God owns it all. And in our discipleship program, if you're involved in our discipleship program, whether one-on-one or in a group, it's an awesome way to learn how to move closer to Jesus, how to be a disciple, how to be totally devoted to who Jesus is. And so if you're not in one of those, in this program yet, we'd love to get you signed up. Sign up on your card, and we'll get you involved as a person or in a small group. But in this discipleship, one of the lessons is called stewardship. And the first principle of stewardship is remembering that God owns it all. And so you can either have two mindsets. You can say, it's all mine, and I can decide what I want to get. You say, it's all God's. And I kind of think if you call yourself a Jesus follower and you remember that God created the entire universe, that he created everything that we see here, then yeah, it is God's. And so with this God owns it all mentality, we can say, you know what? I can give freely because I'm getting. And so I'm not really have anything. God has just given, and I'm just a vehicle that gets to pass it out. And it's this idea of holding on to what you have, right? So if you get something, you hold on to it, and you hold so tightly that nothing goes out so you don't lose it because you're afraid there's not enough out there, then it's really hard to get anything, right? If you're trying to hold something with two fists, it just doesn't work very well. When you open your hands and say, you know what, I've been given this, I can freely give it, and there's room for God to put more in because your hands are open. And it's his anyway, so why would I not want to give it? He has given me everything. Moses kind of understood that this was human nature, to start thinking along the lines, as soon as things got good, that we start forgetting God. And I think typically when things are really bad, we remember God. When we're down, we need help, we're going, God, please help me. But as soon as things start looking on the good side, as we start moving towards a little better life, we start to forget, and we start to come with that mentality of, it's mine and I own it. And so Moses, he was given a message to Israel. They had gone through, come out of Egypt, out of slavery, into the wilderness, and God had taken care of them, and they learned lessons, and now they're getting ready to enter into the promised land. And so he sits them all down, probably in a circle, crisscross applesauce, I don't know. But he sits them down, and he's telling them, hey, here's the deal. Remember how you came out of slavery, and in the wilderness, God took care of you. When you needed something to drink, he gave you something to drink. When you needed something to eat, he gave you something to eat. He has done all these things for you, and now he's going to take you to this promised land, and he's going to wipe out all your enemies, and sooner or later, things are going to be really great. Your stomachs are going to be full. You're going to have everything you need. You're going to be living the good life. And he says, here's the temptation for us, is that you may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me. But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth. I think this is where we slip into sometimes as we go, yeah, I've done this. I put in the work. But then we forget that it was God who gave us that ability, who gave you those likes and dislikes and pushed you in that direction that you go to where you are now. And then it was he who gave us that ability to produce wealth. So we want to fight against the scarcity mentality and work towards the abundance, that there's enough. And we want to remember that God owns it all. And so Paul tells a story of a group of people who had the abundance mindset, and they believed that everything they had was God's anyway. And as he's telling this story, he's telling it to a group of Corinthians. So as Paul traveled around, he planted churches, and the Corinthians had this church. And so he was writing a letter to them, and this was actually in his second letter that he wrote to them. He's trying to encourage them to give to the church in Jerusalem, because the church in Jerusalem is in extreme poverty at the moment. And so as he's telling them, and I'm so glad it's not like this anymore, but he's telling them, and he has to be very tactful about the way he says it, because apparently back then it was difficult to talk about money, right? I'm so glad that's not the case anymore. But he had to be tactful about it. And so he tells this story of this people and what they did and what they gave. And he says, and now, brothers and sisters, we want you to know about the grace that God has given the Macedonian churches. So he's getting ready to set it up, and his next statement seems so irrational. Like, as I read this next sentence that he writes out for us, it's a sentence of opposites. It doesn't make any sense. He says this, in the midst of a very severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. What? Like, all right, we'll start with the severe trial. So they're in the midst of a severe trial, but the next word is their overflowing joy. How many of you can say, yeah, I've got overflowing joy when I'm in a trial? I don't raise my hand. Like, sometimes I can have maybe a little joy. Like, when there's severe trial, you pull in and you say, okay, I know God still loves me, and so I can keep focusing on him. But overflowing joy that's just coming out of you, that's contagious, it doesn't come with severe trials. But then he says, in their extreme poverty. So these people didn't have anything. And I think of what poverty is today, and I try to think back 2,000 years and think about what would have poverty been in that time. But here comes the weird thing. So it says, in a trial, in joy, in poverty, all these added up to a rich generosity. And again, I think this is just a very irrational statement. To my brain, it doesn't make sense. And I think Paul kind of understood that for the Corinthians. So he goes on to explain, he says, "For I testify that they gave as much as they were able." So he says, here's the deal. They weren't doing very good. They're going through a trial. They're in a lot of poverty. But they have such a joy for God. They have an abundance mindset. They understand that God owns it. So they gave what they were able. And it makes a little sense. You go, okay, they looked at what they had and they said, okay, this is what we're able to do. And I think sometimes when I'm in extreme trial, I want to do what I'm able, minus a little, right? I'm going to do what I'm able. This is what I could do, but what if something happens? And that shows my small thinking. I'm not relying on God. And so this, to the world, would kind of make sense. I testify they gave as much as they were able. Okay, they looked at it, someone needed something, so people gave what they were able. But then he gets irrational on us. And he says, and even beyond their ability. They gave beyond what they were able to give. That's irrational generosity. And I can just imagine what their mindset was as they're talking to Paul going, it's God's anyway. And we know this church in Jerusalem is hurting, so this is what we want to do. And it doesn't make sense. If God doesn't show up, we're probably in big trouble here. But they had trust in God that he was going to show up. Then he goes on, and it gets even a little more irrational. It says, entirely on their own, they urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in the service to the Lord's people. So he says, entirely on their own, we were there, we were speaking to them, they decided to give, and they pleaded with us. And I don't know what the conversation looked like, but I imagine Paul's in there, and he's like, sitting there like, hey, Paul, we want to give this. And he goes, okay. And he looks inside the bag and goes, guys, this is a lot. You aren't able to do this. And they go, no, we trust God. Please let us give this because we know God is going to do great things through this gift. We know he's going to take care of us. It's going to strengthen our faith by us giving. And so Paul goes on and says, and they exceeded our expectations. They gave more than was expected, and they were able. I think one of the interesting notes is that there were some expectations. Paul had told us they were in extreme poverty, but they didn't use that as an excuse to not give. There were still expectations that they would give. And I know several years ago when my wife and I were moving and trying to figure out our budgets, we came to that point where we're like, I don't know what we can give. We don't have a lot right now. And giving just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make it zero out at the end. We're negative every month. And in that moment, we decided, hey, we're not going to use that as an excuse. We're going to trust that God is going to continue to take care of us because he has called us to do this. He says they gave themselves first to the Lord, which means they just recommitted their lives. They said, God, we are yours. We're going to trust in you. We're going to keep moving towards you. And then by the will of God, they gave also to us. So Paul tells this story. He says, look at what can happen. When all these things don't seem to add up, typically trial and poverty ends up negative, right? But when these added together, they welled up in rich generosity. So he goes on and says, you guys in Corinthians there, you guys over in Corinth have excelled in everything. You guys have been really good in your faith and speech and knowledge and in the complete earnestness and the love we have kindled in you. You guys have done a great job so far. Now, see that you excel in grace of giving. See that you excel also in the grace of giving. And I think that's what God would call us today too, is that we excel in the grace of giving. And so here's our thought for this week, our value for this week is we will lead the way with rational generosity. As a church, as the Big C Church, as a Bridge Church, we're going to lead the way in irrational generosity. Why? Because we truly believe that it's more blessed to give than to receive. And to truly believe this, it's changing those mindsets in our heads. We've got to believe that God is going to take care of us, that he owns it anyway, and that there's plenty around. And so we have that big faith, and we contribute what we can because we're not going to be spiritual consumers. we will lead the way with irrational generosity because we truly believe it is more blessed to give than to receive. So using Paul's words, and now, brothers and sisters, sorry, not yet. We're going to use Jesus' words. So why is this important? Why is it important to be generous? Jesus gave us some advice here, and he said, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so we want to lead the way to rational generosity because where our treasure is, where our resources go, that's where our heart moves towards. And so we want to be a church that inspires this generation to be totally devoted followers of Jesus. And so our heart needs to move towards that. We believe that we have the greatest impact right here in Adams County where we are. And so we want to move our heart towards Adams County, the people that are in this area. Because where your treasure is, there your heart is also. And now we get to Paul's words. He says, so, brothers and sisters, we want you to know about the grace that God has given the Bridge Community Church. You guys are a very generous bunch, and I believe that we are leading in irrational generosity. And so I want to share with you just over the last 2 years where your heart has been, where your treasure, where your resources have been. Over the last 2 years, because of your generosity, we have paid for, packed, and shipped around 200,000 meals to people in Haiti. 200,000 people, 200,000 meals have gone into Haiti to people who would not have meals otherwise, who that might be their only meal for the day or maybe the week. In 2017, a hurricane hit, and we were able to bless a church down in that area that was rebuilding and working to make things better for their people. We were able to help them. We supported missionaries in Dominican Republic, in Haiti, in India. And in our own community, we supported missionaries right here through YFC. So adults that go into the schools, which definitely is a mission field, they go into our schools and are able to reach kids with the good news of who Jesus is, day in and day out, week in and week out. And through your generosity, we've supported them. In the last 2 years, we've given around 600 Thanksgiving meals to families in our community that otherwise just couldn't do it that year. And so we were able to provide great meals because of your generosity. During a Christmas time, the Giving Tree, we've helped several families with gift cards during that time to buy gifts, to buy food for their family. And we've been able to partner with several organizations in our community that help those that are in need. Hope Clinic, NeighborLink, Love Inc., and the Unfailing Love Clinic. These places in our community that are doing a great job of helping specific groups of people. Because of your generosity, we've been able to partner with them. And last year, many of you know, we started this Every campaign, where we said we're going to lay the foundation for reaching every person in our community. And so several of you came together and said, yes, we're going to give above and beyond. And 148 families have come together and have given to this campaign because you guys believe that's more blessed to give than to receive. And so with the missions and with the campaign giving for the last 2 years, the Bridge Community Church has come together with $470,000 that we have poured in missions out to our community. Guys, I am so blessed that I get to be a part of that I'm a part of a church that's going to be irrationally generous, that believes that is more blessed to give than it is to receive. And so we pour out this money into our community. Why? Because we want to inspire this generation to be totally devoted followers of Jesus. We want to reach every person in our community, and I am very excited to see what God is going to continue to do because we are being irrationally generous. Because your heart has continued to move towards the people in this community. See, giving is something you do. Right? We can give here and there, but generous is who you are. Generous is that mentality that switches. It's that heart issue that switches. And it changes who you are as a person. And so Missy showed us last week this scale, kind of a 1 to 10 scale of where do you see yourself. And I love self-assessments. I think it's good to kind of take a look at where you're at and where you want to be. And at the end of the year, you say, okay, this is who I am. And this is kind of where I want to be, and how can I change some of that? And so I just want you to take a look at this and say, okay, where on this generous scale would I be? Less generous, one, that would be maybe the devil. Like, you're here, so I'm guessing you guys are a little bit generous. You've opened the door for somebody or something. And then down, more generous, 10, I would count that as like coming out of heaven, giving your life for the sins of all humanity. So maybe you're not a 10, but maybe you fit in here somewhere in this 2 to 9 range. And I would see the Macedonian church kind of in this 9 range where it didn't make sense. But they were rationally generous in that moment. And so as you think about where you might be now, what can you do this year to kind of move in generosity? Because we all want to be more generous. I want to be more generous. As I've prepared for this, my wife and I have had several conversations about, okay, what can we do more? What is above our ability that we can keep giving? The questions kind of come up, well, how much do I give and where do I give to? And I think for how much, the key part of it is, Isaiah writes this, he says, generous people plan to do what is generous, and they stand firm on that generosity. So the key thing is plan. Make a plan for it. Write down a budget. In Malachi, we read that God says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, into his church. And so a tithe actually means tenth, and so that's where we get the 10%. And so start with 10%. The big thing, maybe start with just a percentage. Pick 5, 7, 10, 15, 20. I don't know what it may look like for you, but pick a percentage and just say, this is what I'm going to give. I'm going to stand firm on this type of generosity because that's what God has called us to do. We want to be generous because we see great things happen when we're generous. It says God's grace, this is in Acts, the church was so much into giving that this is what happened. And God's grace was so powerfully at work in them that there were no needy persons among them. If you read through Acts, time and time again, it says they just gave. It was so natural for people to give, and nobody had need. And so people were just giving and selling things and giving to people to help them out. And there's not one incident where you hear about someone giving something. There wasn't an instance of, hey, this guy inherited his, grandpa's table and he sold it because this guy needed help with medical bills. Or this lady inherited her grandma's earrings, but she knew this person needed something and so she sold it. There wasn't one story that shared that, but there was one story that was so out of the ordinary, I think, that Luke wrote it down, of Ananias and Sapphira who didn't give. They sold some, they gave a little bit, but they lied about it and they died. And I think Luke found that so interesting, and so he wrote it down. But it was so common that they were just giving and giving and giving. And so I'm so thankful that you guys have continued to give, that we as a church have continued to give and give and give. And I can't wait to see what happens as we continue to be irrationally generous. I think it's important that we give to what breaks our heart. My wife and I love Haiti. We love the Mission of Hope down there. And so we sponsor a young guy down there in his classes. And we have since 2009 because it broke our heart to see someone wanting to learn and not being able to. And so we look forward to, I think it's in 4 or 5 years, that this kid is going to graduate and we're going to see him be a leader in Haiti. That broke our heart. In high school, I grew up going through the Campus Life program, the YSC, and that changed me. That helped me move to where I'm at. It helped my friends understand who Jesus was. And so we're excited about YFC being in our schools. And so my wife and I continue to support YFC missionaries because we want them for our kids and for our kids' friends. And so give to what breaks your heart. And I believe that the local church makes the greatest impact in a community. And so if you're out at Facebook, I don't know where you're at, but find a local church that you can give to, because it will make the greatest impact. And here's the deal, as we are so irrationally generous, as we keep giving and giving and giving, the outside world is going to notice. And they're going to be like, I don't understand why you believe what you believe or why you do what you do, but why are you being so generous? Why are you giving so much of your time and your energy and your resources away? And we can say, because I have a God who was extremely, extremely generous to me. And he was so generous that he didn't even keep his son from us. And we can then tell them about Jesus and what he did for our lives because it didn't make sense to the outside world. And so I'm excited to see what God is going to continue to do so that we can reach every person in our community and move them to be disciples of Jesus. Will you guys pray with me? God, thank you so much for your son. God, thank you for that rich generosity that just poured out in him. That you didn't hold anything back, but you came after us, God, because you loved us so much. And so, Lord, I pray that we continue to be a church that leads the way with irrational generosity. That we would be a light in this community. That people won't understand what's going on here, but God, they want to know why we're so generous. Lord, continue to move us towards you. Lord, I know you're going to do some awesome, great things in this community, God, and in this world. So Lord, give us a big faith. Help us to trust in you, that you have everything, that we can have this abundance mindset that says, God, I know it's yours, and I know you're going to provide for us because you love us. So we just give it to you. We trust what we have to you today. Thank you so much for Jesus. It's in his name we pray. Amen. We're going to sing this last song, and it's called Trust It All. And it just speaks to that, saying, God, I'm going to trust everything I have to you because we believe it is all his. And so as we do, the people with baskets are going to come and take your communication cards and your offering. And as they go by, we just stand up and just declare this song with us today.
With every breath, with every word I speak, with every step, with every
I want to thank you so much for the rich generosity that you guys have just poured out to me, that I've seen as the bridge, as the church. And I'm so excited to see what God is going to continue to do in this community because of irrational generosity. So as you go out today, I love you guys. Thanks so much, and have a great week.
I was blind, now I'm seeing.